Hello and welcome to 7 Minutes of Science. I'm your host Eddie Edwards, coming to you from Mission Acceptable. So I'm battling against a couple of technical issues and the second day of what can only be described as a horrific Halloween related hangover that is entirely my own fault but still sucks. So welcome to 7 Minutes of Science. We'll be running you through the biggest science news stories from the week in 7 minutes or less. That's the hope. Otherwise something bad happens to me. Although I don't think anything could be worse than the way my head currently feels. Anyway, bringing you 7 Minutes of Science in a week that's been not so great for space travel, but pretty good for koalas and tortoises. So without further ado, let's get 7 minutes on that clock. And in 3, 2, 1, we will go. Monday, and looks like we could have an early warning for Alzheimer's. In other news, it's taking every essence of my soul to not say in other news we could have an early warning for Alzheimer's. Anyway, evidence suggests that changes in the veins and arteries in the eye could be linked to things like strokes and cardiovascular disease. Now, a team is going to study whether this could act as an early warning for Alzheimer's. The team, this is being led by Emmanuel Trucco at the Computational Vision Department in Dundee University. They're going to be using data stored by Nine Wells Hospital. Now, I'm guessing this is going to work by feeding all of the eye data that the hospital has into a system. The computers will compare them, see if there's any noticeable differences between the eyes of people who had later went on to develop Alzheimer's and those who did not. I've mixed feelings about this because at the moment there is no known cure for Alzheimer's, so this is kind of useful in a wouldn't you rather know kind of way. But then again, if like me you do have a family history of this disease and you are concerned about this could be useful information for you in terms of at what point do I end my own life rather than slipping into what is basically one of the nastiest diseases on earth. So I've always said, always good to have more information about something that is trying to kill you, so let's hope that this can maybe lead to a preventative response rather than a curative one, which would be a real step forward. Tuesday, so DNA comes into two distinct base pairs. Sometimes people refer to 4 base pairs. That's because you can have either 2, either way round. Now imagine you could give each of those base pairs a numerical value, say 1 and 0, and read it like it was binary data. But for that you'd have to have some major breakthroughs in microfluidics and lab-on-a-chip concepts, which we have had recently. Even then you'd still need to work out how to generate DNA into the code in the first place. And for that you'd need to talk to George Turk and Sri Kasari because they've managed to do exactly that. So how much data can you store on DNA? Well, about 70 copies of the Library of Congress on about a gram of DNA, which is a lot. It still takes a couple of hours to pull the data off of this medium, so it's not good for normal storage, but for long-time archiving could be perfect. And and who knows what this might lead to, because now we've got a reason to make this technology quicker. It will get quicker, that's how technology works. And I personally can't wait to have all of my music stored in my skin, or in a cell of my skin, because if I ever get stranded somewhere with a weirdly specific set of technology and I want to listen to tunes, that would be really good. Anyway, Wednesday, an unmanned space supply rocket heading for the ISS fell somewhat spectacularly short of target when it exploded shortly after launch in Virginia. The unmanned rocket was part of NASA's ongoing efforts to contract out the vast amount of logistical work involved in the running of the space station. The Antares rocket, built by Orbital Sciences Corp, exploded mere seconds after it left the launch pad. The rocket was carrying around 5,000 kilos of supplies, including around 600 kilos of food. The launch was originally scheduled for Monday, but was scrubbed due to a yacht finding its way into the safety exclusion zone. Now, there's no real concern for those on the space station, as Russians launched another supply capsule the same day. As of yet, the cause of the explosion is unknown, but one thing the investigation will be looking at is the AJ-26 engines used to lift the rockets. These are reconditioned engines originally designed for the Soviet moon rocket N1 prior to that program's cancellation, and one of those exploded during a ground test earlier this year. Fortunately, no one was hurt in this incident, but it does serve as a reminder that space travel isn't easy, a theme we will unfortunately be returning to later in the show. Thursday, scientists working out of the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute discovered that our planet has been wet since it was very young. And I truly hope that you appreciate how hard I had to work to make that sound as dirty as possible. As I mentioned last week, while being excited by the result, there's been much discussion about where did water come from in the early solar system. Was it brought in by comets, or was it here originally? Well, it was originally believed that the Earth couldn't have possibly held water because it was too hot, too violent in the early solar system to keep it in liquid form, and the vapour would have been knocked out of the atmosphere as well because of the aforementioned violence. However, Sarah Fanny and his team have managed to get hold of some data from the Android 4 Vesta that seems to indicate that the Earth formed moist. Simply put, there are two types of water in our solar system: the ice found in the comets in the Oort cloud, which come crashing in later, and water found in asteroids called the carbonaceous chondrites, which formed at the same time as the planets and the sun. And the water from the there are two different isotopal makeups of those two water, and the water from Earth matches the ones from the inner solar system. So it seems to indicate that we've had water on Earth for quite a long time. Basically, the blue planet has been blue as long as it's been a planet. So that's pretty interesting. Friday, not a story I'm looking forward to covering. Virgin Galactic spaceship True exploded over the Mojave Desert shortly after launch, killing co-pilot Michael Aylesbury and leaving Peter Siebold with what's being described as moderate to major injuries. Aylesbury is survived by his wife and two children. Unfortunately, at the time of recording, there's precious little information to go on, as it's going to take a team of investigators at least 4 days to get access to the crash site, and they reckon a full investigation could be an entire year. So in the absence of any real information to report, there's little we can do in the wake of a tragedy like this except ask questions. And one question people will always ask at a time like this is this worth it? Is it worth risking people's lives just to get out into space? And the answer is yes. People risk their lives every day. People risk their lives to cross the street. Being alive is an incredibly risky proposition. So risky, in fact, that no one as of yet has made it through it alive. But when you apply it across the species, that entire risk gets made much, much worse when all of our evolutionary eggs are in one Earth basket. Basically, the future of humans either involves us dying out on this planet or reaching out into space and reaching new worlds. I don't want to accept the first proposition, that we die here unmarked and unremembered by the universe, and I don't think a man like Michael Aylesbury does so. We salute the loss of a great hero in the battle of scientific advancement. Finally, koalas. That's a drop bear, not a koala. Better. Koalas have chlamydia, like an insane amount of koalas have chlamydia, enough that it's been considered the tipping point in their recent decline in numbers. So it should be some comfort to lovers of the cuddly little blighters that recent trials of a vaccine on the koala population has led to some promising results. This is only a small-scale trial targeting a group of 30 koalas and using 30 as a control group. Now, one of the key symptoms of this disease is eye infections, as opposed to in humans, where it's a shocked facial expression outside of a family planning clinic. As of the 8 koalas with eye infections in the trial, 7 wound up improving. It's nice to occasionally be able to report on us using the tool that separates us from the animals, our minds, to help other life forms, especially when the story of human advancement has so often been the opposite. And finally, I've got another moderately uplifting story about animals to finish off on as well. We're all aware of the giant tortoise of the Galapagos Islands, a species that has a special place in my heart because of their importance to the work of Charles Darwin, who I love to pieces. What you might not be aware of is how close we came to losing them. Back in the 1960s, the island of Espanola had 15 tortoises left on the island. Now there are over 1,000. This is the result of a conservation program that launched back in 1973 and has been so successful that it looks as if we can actually remove ourselves from the picture. Now, I'm not going to go into detail on this one because there's no way I can do it close to justice in the time I have left. Too many people worked on this for far too long, and they worked very hard to do something that is an unequivocally good thing. That's a rarity for the human race, and I'd like to celebrate. If you want any more details or information about this, please check the links below. But please realise that paper that you're going to read down there is only an attribution to the publishers, not to everyone who works on the project. And that is done in time, 7 minutes. I'm so glad that I didn't have to do something horrible after, because I probably, to be fair, I've got limited options, not a lot of time, and the spice cabinet is filled with things that I don't really want to consume vast quantities of, because I will die given the way my head feels right now. So again, thanks once again for watching the show, and I apologise for being a little bit light on the jokes. I think given the subject matter that we discussed this week, didn't really want to make this a too funny one. Thanks again for your continued support. If you like the show, like the show. If you think someone you know would like the show, then share the show. And if you want to see more of what we do, please subscribe to the show. If you've got any suggestions for improvements or any suggestions for stories that you'd like to see, either comment on the videos or follow me on Twitter. Hit me up with what you want me to talk about, and maybe we can include it in next week's episode. And until then, as always, good luck in your endeavours. If your endeavours be good. Goodbye.